What the fuck? In today's video, we're taking a look at a real unicorn of a lens, the Zenitar ME-1 50mm f1.7 with square aperture. We take a close-up physical look at the lens and some of its performance features and limitations. We test out the depth of field performance and the sharpness to see how it performs at the different aperture values, as well as the unique character that really shines at night. We test out flaring on the lens at different aperture values to see how it performs. Then we put the lens through some real-life testing, taking it out on various different photo shoots during the day as well as at night. Come along as we discuss a truly unique lens. Alright, so here's what we've got. The Zenitar ME-1 is a Russian-manufactured lens that began production in around like the 1980s. This was made in the KMZ factory, and I only point that out because there are 3 factories that the Russians used to make different lenses, and KMZ was considered to be the superior of those factories. Now, this lens has a full round aperture version as well as the 2 square blade version. From my research, and I was not able to confirm this 100%, so this is kind of an estimate, it said that there were between 7,000 and 8,000 lenses produced with this square aperture, so it does make it kind of rare. And when you look at eBay listings and purchasing these secondhand, the value to these lenses and the cost of these lenses does kind of substantiate that it is a bit of a rarer lens. Now let's go ahead and take a close-up look at this lens. And here it is. The Zenitar 50mm f1.7. Now this particular version of the lens, as I mentioned before, is a little bit of a unicorn, as it only has 2 aperture blades, giving it that square bokeh and that really unique and distinctive out of focus area. The aperture goes from 1.7 to 16 in half-stop increments. The lens has a pretty decent focusing distance, getting down to 0.45 meters for close focus, and has about a 270 degree focus throw. Now this lens was made to have aperture priority control with the Zenit 18 film camera. Now because of that, it has this little switch here that goes between auto and manual. Now, this is my biggest complaint about this lens. The positioning of this makes it so that when you are moving your aperture, you can easily bump this. And when you are stopping down your aperture, if you bump this, it immediately opens all the way. Now the reason I find this auto to manual toggle switch to be such an issue is this lens with a 2-blade aperture has truly unique character when you step it down. At f2, you start getting that square shape, and at 2.8, you get that true diamond-looking bokeh. But at 1.7, it is fully circular because of the shape of the barrel of the lens. So when I bump this, or if this is bumped, when I'm trying to shoot at like f4, I lose all of the character that I'm trying to get. Now speaking of the character, I did a test on the depth of field and the sharpness of the lens, and I was truly surprised with what I found out. So to do our depth of field and sharpness test, we busted out the Polaroid land camera. Now surprisingly, even at 1.7 wide open, the lens is surprisingly sharp, and the bokeh is nice and circular. Stepping down to f2, it does tighten up the sharpness a little bit, and you start introducing that diamond-shaped bokeh. By 2.8, the lens is very sharp, and the diamond-shaped bokeh is prevalent. F4 is probably where the sharpness stops improving. At F4 it is extremely sharp and you get really strong diamonds in the background. As we start to increase the aperture to these greater values like f10, f11, f13, we start to see almost a pixelization effect to the background. The way the diamond bokeh presents is very odd, but also quite unique. And this is what I found super interesting. This lens is almost as sharp as a modern 50mm lens, and in some cases might actually be sharper than modern 50mm lenses. Now, another thing that's interesting about the aperture is how it impacts lens flare. Now, this lens is claimed to have multi-coating. I say claims to because this lens wildly flares. At f1.7, you get this ethereal, dreamy type of flare that is referred to as an eyelash or rainbow flare a lot of the time. As we step down, you start getting a more consistent spot flare that we would kind of expect to see. But the interesting thing is, as you step down to f2.8 and f4, you start seeing the square or diamond-shaped aperture in the flare. Now, like I said, this lens flares wildly easy. It is very simple to get a flare in there, and it is very simple for the flare to overpower the entire lens. All right, from here, we got out and did some real-world testing with the lens. So we're out here today. We're going to be shooting with the Zenitar ME-1. So again, as we've already discussed, this lens is 50mm, it's an f1.7, but it only has a 2-blade aperture. So as you step it down, you know, f2.8, f4, f8, you start getting diamond-shaped bokeh or diamond-shaped out-of-focus areas. So we're gonna kind of lean into that today. It's a really bright, sunny day, which means that we're gonna have to stop the aperture down because it's gonna be too bright. So here's where we're gonna be. I'm gonna shoot Claire. We got this really cool like scene framing here of this like light post for the train tracks that you can see. But I really love the framing that it gives, and I really love the graffiti in here. So that's what we're gonna be using. Overall, the image quality from this lens is quite stellar. It is very sharp and has some beautiful contrast. The out of focus areas giving that diamond background do really kind of lean into that kind of pixelation effect. You should be tall enough for this. I'm gonna have you stand on this side. And can you do like this? Yeah. Okay. Now we're gonna get in tight here. Tight and close so we can kind of really play up the out of focus area. Look right at me, straight down the barrel. Okay, cool. That was fun. All right, for our next look, I have Claire up on this platform doing just like a little leaning pose, still keeping like kind of like edgy aesthetic, a little bit more grunge, as it were. And yeah. Come on, lens flare, come back. Come to me, my lens flare. These shots were so absolutely gorgeous, and this was the first time I really saw this lens flare so wildly. All right, now we got this spot right here. I don't know, like a power fuse conductor, I guess, for maybe, this is like a track switcher. Yeah, but right here has super beautiful lens flare. I also love the graffiti here. It's back. Flare is back. Flare is back. Coming right here to the middle. Dude, this thing's flaring like crazy. Now, what I figured out by the flare is the flare made color images really hard to deal with. But in black and white, they looked super dramatic and really cool. So I leaned into that aesthetic and I tested out what it would look like to edit the image into black and white, and I was very, very pleased. Nice. Okay. We're gonna wrap up with a couple like straight on and catty corners in this building, because I do like the graffiti, but yeah. Light's too harsh right now. Come over towards the corner. corner and turn to face the light. Not all the way. You can come back some. Come back. Turn your body back. There you go. But I want your face kind of oriented that way a little bit more. Huh? Okay. This is still pretty badass. Down. Now look down towards your feet. Now up to me. Tough. Tough. You're so tough. Hold. I want to kind of get like. There we go. Now look at me. Here's another example where I really like the color image, but I also really like the black and white. I think they both came out excellent, and I do think that there's a little more visual interest in the black and white. Looks a little bit more punchy. Yeah, we lost way too much light here. Alright. Cool. Once we finished up the daytime shoot, we went to go test out low light and nighttime shooting. This is where the bokeh of this lens absolutely shines. The diamond patterns of city night lights is just fantastic. However, it is a little weird because we are so used to that circular bokeh that it is a little jarring at first. I set up with Claire on this porch patio, trying to get some nice backlights, some city lights. I love the red flowers, and there is some decent overhead lighting on this porch. However, after taking a couple shots, I wasn't thrilled. I wasn't thrilled. So my good buddy actually happened to be with us, and so I conscripted his services to hold a flash, and I used my friend as just a human light stand. Adding the flash to these images was just the most subtle amount of light onto Claire, but it made all of the difference in the images. These are so much more punchy, so much stronger, and I found these to be way better. Now, in some real-world testing with the lens, we learned a few additional things. First, the lens does actually have some pretty significant barrel distortion, which just means that it almost looks like the image is bubbling up at you a tiny bit. It creates a little bit more curvature to the lines near the edges of the frame. We can see that a lot in the images that we took of Claire in front of that like train fuse box. Some other things that I noted, and I will be transparent here, all of these images I put through Lightroom and did the literal most basic adjustments. There was nothing significant or anything dramatically done to these images. But it does take away a little bit from the fact that this lens is very contrasty, but pretty muted with saturation, at least right out of the lens. To pump up those colors, you do have to add a little bit more saturation in. Now the contrast is beautiful, and there's very little that needs to be done to increase the contrast, except when there is a flare to the lens. The flaring is so wild and so uncontrollable that it does kind of damage the image quality and does require a fair amount of editing to try and bring it back. All in all, this is one of my favorite vintage lenses of all time. I love the characters of this lens. It is so beautiful and so unique to get that diamond-shaped bokeh in the background. It is very sharp, performs on par or on level with a lot of modern optics. Personally, I love flaring, so I love that this lens flares, although I will say, I do think it flares a little much, so I would err more on the side of shooting closer to like f2.8 or f4 when trying to make the lens flare. The 1.7 is a little too much, in my opinion. Well, anyway, guys, that's gonna wrap us up for this video. Do you think you're gonna maybe pick up a 2-blade aperture Zenitar? Let me know in the comments. Well, if you got to this point, guys, I greatly appreciate it. Leave me a comment, let me know what you want to see in our next video, like the video, and subscribe if you haven't done so already. It really helps us out. As always, we greatly appreciate it, and we'll see you in the next one. Peace out, guys. Bye.